Hello, hello, hello. It's a late one today, but by grace we are here. Let's carry on. So let's resume the project. I think it's step 38, as you can see. If I remind myself where we are, so actually I'm gonna go back a step just to sort of gain my bearings once more, because it feels like it's been a while. So we started dealing with the button. We actually did something with the button. We initialized it by listening in on this event, the on click, and we assigned it to something, didn't we? We assigned it to what do we do? We assigned it to a function which we are yet to define. So we assigned it to this function go store. We're yet to define that. So that's done. I'm not gonna do that again because time is far spent. So now let's go. Cool. So using the same syntax, set the on-click properties of button 2 and button 3 to go cave and fight dragon respectively. So all of these are going to be functions. So interesting, because I thought a function has to have the brackets, doesn't it? So let's see. If we fail, we fail. We learn. So again, my preferred method is copy and paste, and then change what needs to be changed. So button 2 and button 3. And on clicking button 2, I actually want to go cave. And on clicking button 3, I want to fight the dragon. So let's see. And it passes. I don't think they were testing this. I just think it might be a matter of it doesn't matter now because we are yet to actually define these functions. And this is a good way of writing code as well that I've noticed is you can you don't have to have everything set up before you start. You can start and then, like we've got go store here as a function that we eventually want to use. But as opposed to needing to having defined that function already, we can just put here, for instance, a placeholder, and syntactically, it's correct, and as much as we haven't defined what Go Store is, and I think if we were doing this sort of in a real editor, we might find it will complain, and we'd sort of maybe go and have to create a dummy function such that the program can see that function exists. But alas, yeah, it's good that we're able to sort of do this, put placeholders in place so that we have a logical structure to what we want to do, and then we can flesh it out, as it were. Next challenge. Cool. So now we're going to actually define some functions. So functions are special tools that allow you to run sections of code at specific times. You can declare functions using the function keyword. Here is an example. So function name function, got the parentheses and then these curly brackets, and what's inside the curly brackets is the code that we want to run. Create an empty function named goStore. This will match the goStore variable you used earlier. So we're going to use the exact same format, and this isn't the only way of creating functions or even declaring them, but this is sort of the basic. So goStore. And that's going to be my empty function. Again, what I was saying, having a placeholder there. Alright. Now for now, make your go store function output a message going to store to the console. Cool. So, yeah, this is sort of, again, sort of standard practice that I see real programmers do, because I'm not a real programmer yet, is using the console log to actually just do bits to prove where in the code you are, or to sort of start debugging stuff, to start seeing what's going on, because console log, you have somewhere where you can actually see, you can log something to the console and actually see what's going on. Now, this is what I was saying would be the issue where it would complain because we haven't defined Go Cave, in as much as we have a function for it here. We the program's like, well, you're calling something that you haven't defined yet, and it's not happy with that, and that's what we're going to do here. So we want, when we call, so remember what's in the curly brackets is just what gets what gets executed when that function is called. So a function just becomes, it's like, it's a way of repeating a certain number of steps, if yeah. So in this instance, the only steps we want to do is we want to say we are going to store. We want to put that out to the console whenever it is run. So let's see. Cool. So that passes. Again, we still have this issue, but we haven't executed this function yet, because if we go back to our button, we are calling the function when we click the button. So nothing's happened. We haven't clicked the button yet. I wonder if it will be happy. It should be. So there you go. Nice. That's interesting. So when I click the button, JavaScript has listened to that event, and it knows in its source code that it's like, well, someone clicks the button. We want to, at this point, log to the console that we're going to store. Now, this interface from FreeCodeCamp is actually really cool. Eventually, I'd want to be able to export all my code and sort of have it on my machine or in my GitHub or whatever. But I mean, this is a really, really, really nice environment to be working in, and that it's online means I don't necessarily even have to download anything. So if I'm starting from scratch, or if you might be starting from scratch, as we did start from scratch, and you don't even know about all these text editors and IDEs, which is what integrated development environments, you have an interface that you can right away start learning, start working in, and it's all gravy. This is dope. This is really dope. Cool. I always feel bad. I mean, that pop-up comes at the right time. I feel really bad. So we're going to do the same thing for Go Cave, and I'm showing the console here because we are printing to the console. Go Cave, going to Cave. Again, standard operating procedure for me. If I've written it before, I'm going to copy and paste. And eventually, I guess what we will start to see is the idea of having to copy and paste things. I think it's referred to as dry, or the idea of not having to copy and paste things. Dries don't repeat yourself, and so you want to have code such that you don't have to do this, so you're not doing sort of repeated copy and paste, which I guess is not the same thing. But the idea that I'm able to copy and paste a lot of things does suggest there is some repetition, or there are some elements of repetition, and so I probably would want to think about that as I go, that maybe I want to combine some of these into their own functions. So I'm not, if I'm copying and pasting the same things, then it's like, well, am I are there areas in which I'm repeating myself unnecessarily? Cool. So again, now if I click go to store, go into Cave, let's go to the next challenge. Cool. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say function. What's my function? Fight dragon. Now this does have to match like exactly to what's calling it, of course, because that's how the program knows what you're actually talking about. Let's see, fighting dragon. Fight in dragon, then we're going to cave, and then we're going to store. Cool. The inner text property controls the text that appears in an HTML element. Okay. Cool. So here again, if I'm thinking correctly about what's happening, just in the example, what we're doing, and I'm learning this is an important thing to do. And I said this the last time. So again, full disclosure, life of a dad. I'm hearing movement behind me, so I'm having to check that my daughter isn't up, because if she is, I need to attend to her, get her back in bed as early as possible. Because we've got church in the morning, and if she doesn't get a good night's sleep, she gets cranky. So, by all indications, she's still sleeping. Yep, I can hear her sleeping. So, this is life, y'all. Even when you're working, first job is a dad. So, gotta do what you gotta do. Anyway, yeah. So it's the idea of you need a handler, you need something to do, or to then become a representation of what it is that you're grabbing from the object, from the document object. So here we're using this document. So document is our DOM, is our HTML, is our browser that exists at the point which the browser is loaded, and we're grabbing the thing. So we know that it's an ID, so we're grabbing the thing with an ID of info. And so we're grabbing, if we think of, where we're grabbing this, if we can visualize, we're grabbing this object that has the ID of info, and we're then assigning that to this constant that we're calling, this constant variable that we're calling info. So once this line of code is executed, we have info, which is a representation of this object in the actual HTML file, in the actual web page. And then we're using this dot notation thing the dot notation gives us access to various properties of that object that we can then interact with. And so we're then saying, okay, for info, we want to know what the inner text property is. And as the thing suggests, the inner text property is the text that appears in the element. So if I were to then extend that to, for instance, our game thus far, the inner text of this button should be go to store. So actually, let's see. Do we have something with the... I don't think we actually have anything with the ID info. Yeah, we don't. So that's fine. But I'm guessing if we were to grab the ID health text, then the inner text would be 100. That's what I'm thinking it is. So, cool. This code would change the element assigned to the info variable to have the text hello world. Oh, sorry, my bad. So actually, what we're saying here is we aren't grabbing this text. We aren't saying info.innerText is hello world. What we're doing now is actually we're assigning hello world to the inner text of info. And actually, if we wanted to do what I was saying initially, we could then say console log, for instance, info.inner text, and that would log the inner text of the info. So after this, for instance, if after this line of code, now that we've assigned hello world to the inner text of the object info, if we were then to then say console log info.inner text, we would see hello world in the console, I believe. So cool. Sorry, it's late. I'm obviously not thinking properly. This code will change the element assigned to the info variable to have the text hello world. Cool. When a player clicks your go to store button, you want to change the buttons in text. Remove the code inside the go store function and add a line that updates the text of button 1 to say by 10 health. Go. Cool. So we know that this works because when we want to log the console, we can. But now what we're saying is when someone goes to store, clicks button 1 and goes to store, so I'm going to do pseudotext because, and this is probably like not where you want to use pseudotext, pseudocode, but pseudocode is where you use comments to sort of lay out the flow of your program, of your code in plain English, in plain text. So this is something that we learned, and I'm going to do that. So, and I probably don't need to here, but when someone clicks it, we want to change. So someone's clicked the button and they've gone to the store. We want to, well, we're going to have to create a handle for button, which we kind of have already. We've got button 1. So, okay, we don't need to create a handle. Actually, I'm going to do this just for the exercise of it. Right, create a handler for the button. We've done that. Once we have the handler, we want to then change the inner change the inner text property of the button to by the. Okay, so we know we have that already. So we've got the handler. So if someone buys button 1, we know that's the constant button 1. So someone clicks it, button 1 dot inner text is equal to by 10 health code. Someone clicks a button, we're saying we're going to change the inner text, which is the button, to say that. There you go. Okay, so that worked. Go. Now add a line that updates the text of button 2 to say. So when we go to the store, we actually changing the other buttons as well. So when someone says go to store, we can buy 10 health gold, or we can, for button 2, buy a weapon, or for button 3, go to town square. So 2, 3. I'm guessing town square is actually just like a go home thing. So So all of a sudden I have a go home situation as well. So every time, this is what our function does. Every time we click it, we're actually just changing the buttons to be something else, which is cool. Okay. You also need to update the functions that run when the buttons are clicked again. So in the Go Store function, update the on-click property for each button to run, buy health, buy weapon, and go to town. So we're saying these things, but now that we've changed the name of the button, we're also indicating that we want to change the functionality of the button, which makes sense, which makes complete sense. So, cool. So, we click button 1, and now we're going to go to the store. Now in the store, button 1 then becomes buy and health, button 2 becomes this, and button 3 becomes that. So okay. Yeah. So once we've clicked this, in as much as it's not a matter of, oh, this is active, it's a matter of we've clicked it, we've changed the functionality almost permanently. So if you click it, not permanently, but I guess the way I'm thinking of it is once you've clicked it, until you either close the program or click or do something else, the functionality of the buttons will now have changed. And now button 1 buys health worth 10 quid, 10 gold. Button 2 buy a weapon. Button 3 will go town. And now I have to go and then create those functions as well, which is cool. I guess I could create those functions within here, because then we start talking about scope. So I could create those functions within here, and those functions will only be accessible to this function. I don't know if that's sensible, actually, but we'll see. I don't know if that's best practice. I don't know if that's good practice, but as far as I can tell, well, I guess, for instance, the Go Town, we'd probably always want to be able to access that, because that's probably making this like the back button. That might always be the case, but yeah, let's see. Okay. So I'm doing all of this within the Go Store function. Interesting. Cool. Alright, so I already have a text field here. So I'm then gonna say text and text is equal to you enter, probably should be you entered the store. That's out of interest. So we go to store, go to town square. My text didn't change though. So let's just check what has ID text. And that is this dude here. It's interesting that didn't change. I'd have expected this to change. But let's see. Let's see why. Because I think that passes, yeah. Yeah, so we are creating 3 new functions. Function. Again, I'm doing like this because I am extremely lazy, and I know that all my functions will have the exact same thing, the exact same format. So I just batch those together by health, by weapon, and go town. I just want to see, yeah, okay. So, in as much as it is so being like IDE, like maybe it's not perfect. Because clicking on it then does. Now, clicking on go to square, for instance, now won't do anything because I haven't got anything handling it. Or I haven't got anything. So I'm clicking button 3 now, which is go to square, and it's saying we'll go town. So there might be. I thought there'd be like a console message, but there isn't, which is fine. I'm not hurt. You're hurt. But yeah, we've now got 3 empty functions that we can then use. Move your go town function above your go store function. Then copy and paste the contents of the go store function into the go town. That's interesting. Okay, so we've got a function. So 59. Oh, I copied that. I didn't. Okay. So this is interesting. Right. So there was an error going on. Oh, hello. Hey. I don't know if that's Robert or Joya, and I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth and say either. But shout out for joining me, Robert and Andrea, since you guys are one. Yeah. So it's interesting. It wasn't failing the code, but there were issues going on in the console, and I guess that's a lesson learned there, that when you're coding, some of the errors might not be immediately visible. Sometimes all things might be, again, syntactically correct, so there might not be errors, but that's where your console does become useful. Only Robert calls me heathen because only Robert is so desperately mistaken. um Shout out, Robert. So yeah, cool. That was why I wasn't passing, because I had copied go town up here, but then I still had go town sort of open here as an empty function. So it's like you've already declared it, and then you're going downstairs and redeclaring it. But yeah, incompletely. So cool. That's cool. Submit. Go to the next challenge. Now, in your go town function, change your button elements in the text properties to be go to store, go to cave, fight dragon, update the on-click properties to be go store, go cave, fight dragon. Text, you are in town square. You see a sign that says store. Cool. Okay, so they did actually what I've been doing, which is copying and pasting where the structure is the same, because it saves you some keystrokes. So that's cool. That's quite useful. Cool. So inner text properties too. Go to store. I'm guessing for 1. Go to cave. And so we're changing we're changing both the functionality and the names of the buttons. So here we're changing the names. By changing the inner text, we're just changing the names, which is cosmetic at best. However, we change the functionality when we change the on click. And so now we're going to store. We're going to cave. And there we're fighting dragon with button 3. And I guess here's where it starts to be important to start thinking in patterns. And so I know I can almost start to say anytime I update a button, or when I click any button, I want to update all the 3 buttons names, update all 3 buttons functionality, and change the text that they are then seeing, which is cool. And so here, so we already have a go store function. When we click the go store function, we change the behavior and names of all the buttons. But we've now said we've also got a go town, which I said was like a back button. And when we click the go town button, we want to restore all the names that we had before, or restore the functionality of the buttons that we had before, to say we're back at that place that we started, which is the town square, for instance. So that's quite cool. Cool. This is step 49. I think I'm going to make step 50 my last, and then I'm going to call it, because I have got church tomorrow. Cool. Now you need to wrap the text store in double quotes, because your string is already wrapped in double quotes. You need to escape the quotes around store. You can escape them with a backslash. Okay, so we are saying here, you see a sign that says store, but we want that store to also be in double quotes, because you're telling someone that they see something called store. But because we've already got quotes here, we need to tell the program to ignore these quotes, this first quote, which is a backslash, and then we want to tell it to ignore this one as well. Yeah, because in as much as we want this to say store, we also don't want these this sort of wrapping quotation marks within to be interpreted as like a string within a string, which doesn't make sense. So cool. Alright, and that was step 50, and that's me done. So I'm gonna come and do this, God willing, tomorrow. Yo, thank you for rocking with me. Thank you for watching this whenever you do. And shout out to Robert for joining. Appreciate you, bro. Peace. And that just looked like the Rob. So, peace.